Victor Vizcaino. Fascinating man, Victor. Do you like to run? Have you ever got that runner's high? Everybody talks about it. I have to admit, I have experienced it before, not recently. But Victor was born in Mexico, loved boxing as a youth, now lives in the Northwest United States, and wanted to prove to his sister that he could run, and started picking it up and started doing marathons and was training for the Boston Marathon. He was told that to be in the Boston Marathon, you're an elite runner. So it took him 6 years to get there. He went through many trials. He wasn't improving at all. So he started doing triathlons, and he went right into Ironman versus, doing sprints or Olympic triathlons. And his approach to running and how he describes that euphoria of that runner's high is fascinating. He coaches people now on how to run. Many people come to him and say, I want to lose weight. And of course, exercise gets you healthy, but it's nutrition. It's what you eat, which will help you with the weight loss. But getting healthy is step one. Once you're healthy, then everything kind of works from there. But Victor is really, I love his style. I love his message. He has struggles in many things. He's very open about them, and he just shows people his perspective and his love and his passion of running. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. To talk to you, Victor Vizcaino.
Yeah,
Great pleasure. So tell me why, Victor, running feeds your soul.
running feeds my soul because it's a feeling. So I don't know if I have a real reason. It's just a feeling that when I was starting to run longer distances, I would feel that euphoric feeling, and I felt that people talk about the runner's high, and I sure felt under that influence. And as I kept doing it more and more, I felt that I was enjoying life more. Just the things that would come up that I was excited about, problems that would come up, I would solve during my run. And yeah, I think that's when I didn't, because I hated running when I used to work out.
Hmm.
But once I started training for a marathon, something changed. And I think it was that runner's high. And all of a sudden, I found myself looking forward to running those long runs. Like I couldn't wait. We would do them on a Sunday, and it's like, man, I can't wait. We're going to run 15 miles next Sunday, and I would look forward to that. Whereas in the past, it's like, oh my gosh, we got to go run 5 miles, and no, and all of a sudden, I was excited.
You described, Victor, I heard you describe it like you had this very challenge of your daughter's wedding, you had stage fright, you don't like public speaking, and you went for a run and it all kind of came to you and it settled you down.
Yes, yeah, that was one of the first evidence that I put to work, because other times I've had experience where like, oh, I have this great idea. Then I would get home and time would pass, and then I thought, no, that was a horrible idea. I was just experiencing runner's high. But this time, because I wanted it really bad, like I really want to talk at my daughter's wedding,
Mm.
and I'm frightened and I don't know what I'm going to say. And but I saw other parents, my brother-in-law talk beautiful about his daughters. Like, I want to do that. And as I was running, I did come with like, oh yeah, I have this memory, and that would be awesome if I could say that. If I could. And all of a sudden, I'm excited. I'm excited about talking about those experiences that my daughter and I had. And this time when I came home, it's like, yes, I'm not going to let it go. I'm just going to write it down, everything that I was thinking about, and I did it. I practiced it, and my daughter was happy at the wedding.
Wow. And do you get this runner's high every time you run?
Yes, I think so. Just in different intensities. I think the I did it
Oh.
more in the longer runs, and yeah, but almost every time I have little periods of highs and lows, and I definitely like the highs better.
And when you're in it, you realize you're in it?
Yes, more now so because I just get really excited about something and say, "Oh, here it's coming on," and I'm
Mm.
also feel like I'm getting better at inducing it,
Hmm.
uh, practicing the things that I used to do at the beginning that I thought maybe influenced it. Like with Tony Robbins, when I was following Tony Robbins, he had that hour of power. So I sort of was habit stacking. Okay, I'm supposed to do the hour of power. I'm supposed to be do gratitude, all these things. So as I went out for a run, I say I'm going to think of 5 things I'm grateful for. And as I kept doing these mental practices, all of a sudden, boom, I would come up a lot sooner just because I was indulging more in those positive thoughts and that kind of frame of mind.
And do you have it for a length of time and then it goes away and it comes back, or is it consistently with you?
Oh, it definitely goes up and down because
I see.
I mean, I feel like there's times where everything seems to be amplified. And as you're
Hmm.
running, if you have a really sad thought, you can really go down. But because you're making an effort, if you're more mindful of what's coming into your mind, because you know, let's say I gotta go on a 15-mile run, and the body will tell you right now, yeah, you can't think of that and do another mile. So it's
Hmm.
just like you're aware of your thoughts and like, hey, let's switch topics or let's switch to a healthy thought about around that. And now, yeah, and with my clients, that's what I usually do is let them know every time they go on a run with intentionally having your thoughts of the things that you want to think about, and I think that people learn really quick that you need to have really good thoughts, and you're going to have a better run, and you're going to be more productive.
And do you encourage like one earbud, like listening to music, or you want silence?
All of them. I switch around because I'll listen to your podcast and so I'm running,
Ah.
and sometimes that's how I get ideas and I start thinking.
Mm.
And then if it's a really long run, then you can do off and on. You know, if you listen to a podcast and then switch it off and go silent and maybe um, just think about what you just listened to. And then what I would do is also music, alternate. Okay, this time I'm going to go to music. And
Hmm.
while I'm listening to music, I'll think about something that one of your guests talked about. That would give me ideas for my own coaching or whatever it is that I'm thinking about, and make a note of that. But yeah, I'll switch it up. And there are times when I'm just complete silence. When we do marathons, and a lot of the marathons
Mm.
won't allow any music, so it's a good practice to go out there without it because that's the way you're going to do the race. But there are races where it's completely allowed.
Hmm.
But you
And part
definitely,
of the please.
definitely in the runner's high, music does intensify my
It
running.
does.
Yes, yes.
It's amazing to me. And um I heard you talk about that. You kind of I won't say struggled, but you like to kind of drink alcohol, and you kind of moved over to running. Is the runner's high similar to being intoxicated?
I Yes, I think so. I think because I think you get that same bravado of like, oh, this
Ah,
is possible. I can do that. But I think it's probably more realistic when you're on runner's high than when you're you can think of some pretty dumb stuff when you're drunk, and
right. Oh,
it's
so it's more clarity of thought,
yes,
maybe.
yeah, when you're doing runner's high. Yes. and you're definitely capable, and you're definitely running. You're not going to crash or do something dumb. You're not disabled that way like you do with alcohol.
Mm,
But in the way that I think the bravado part is like when I used to
yeah.
drink, it's like, oh, I got more courage now. I can
Mm,
talk to girls, or I can whatever it is that you're intimidated. You have, but a very very false bravado.
yes, very false. And no hangover, right? So it's
Right?
it's
No.
cleaner.
Yes.
I've had love on, love off relationship with running. I played soccer all my life. And back I think we're around the same age. And back when I was a kid, the punishment in soccer was go run a lap. So we were always in our mind that running was punishment. It's a wrong message to send. Right. Because then when you want to start doing it, to help yourself, you think, oh, this is really punishment. But you kind of get over that. And when I was kind of struggling with my weight and my health, I remember distinctly I was out in Cape Cod and I went for a run, and it just hit me, Victor. And that runner's high hit me. And I remember I started weeping, and I started like, what's happening? And I remember the song that was playing in my head. And it's like, wow, this is something that can't be manufactured. This is my body rewarding me because I'm doing something good for it, not only for my body, but for my mind.
Yes. Yeah. You got it
It's
spot on.
wonderful.
Spot on. That's a good insight. That's
The
awesome.
problem, of course, is that my knees are bad and it's hard to keep up the running.
Yes, and where that is, I've had um, client, and actually, I just had a client who was training for a marathon, and her knees started hurting. And I said, okay, let's get you to a doctor, have it checked, make sure that there's nothing wrong. If they don't find anything, that it could be just we need to just strengthen certain muscles
Mm,
around the
mm,
knee, and
mm.
maybe take some vitamins. I myself took glucosamine at one point, and that kind of cured
Wow.
my pain in my knees. With this particular client, she the doctor said, "You're fine. We can't find anything. You're okay." All right, then we just started doing some strengthening exercise. She kept running, and she got to the marathon, and she said
Wow.
she didn't experience any pain anymore.
Mm,
And so, yes, the number one thing is to make sure you get to the doctor, make sure there's nothing. My doctor told me I have a little bit of arthritis, but the way he put it also was like, it's not going to. Some people run fine with the arthritis, and some people they can't run with the arthritis. So
mm.
it is definitely a journey of self discovery, finding out what are your limitations and what can you do.
How has technology, Victor, helped running?
Technology, in a lot of ways. With coaching, there's so many apps. So for example, a lot of my clients use Strava. It records their workouts. So right after they do their workout, I can see what they did, their heart rate, all these monitors. When you
Yeah.
are running yourself, there's the gadgets that I remember when I started running, I didn't have the Garmin or anything. I just went by
Mhm.
time pretty much and kind of gauging where the mile is and how much time has occurred. Now everything is right there. It's telling you at what pace you're running, what your heart rate is, so much. The only thing to be careful about is people who start to analyze it a little bit too much to where it
Mm.
paralyzes, paralysis by analysis. And that
Mm.
started to happen to me with triathlons when I started to just get into too much. It's like, you know what? I'm going to go a little bit of technology, a little bit of perceived excursion. Ex- I don't think I'm saying that right.
I know
You
what
know
you
what I
mean.
mean? Yeah. So don't rely so much on technology to where it paralyzes you.
Mm. Yeah, the watches, the ring, the chest straps. I mean, these are all giving incredible information, and you could just tell when you're starting to increase your heartbeat when you go back and look at it later. It's really, really cool. But how about like the sneakers? I mean, those have come a long way, right? Some of those
Yeah,
foam ones they have now, or not now,
yeah.
but been around for a little while anyway.
Yes, I bought myself a pair myself with the carbon plated.
Yes.
Definitely, they feel like you're cheating.
Yes. Yeah, so it makes you kind of avoid the heel strike, right? Because the way it
Yeah,
kinda cushions?
yeah, the way it cushions, the way it makes you land. So one of the things that I read was that you have to be careful of not changing your stride so much because it will
Mm.
change your stride when you have those carbon plated shoes.
Ah.
So start to take them for runs, get used to them. Don't grab a new pair of shoes and go out and race with them because
Mm.
you can get hurt. And the other thing is alternating with sneakers is a good idea.
Huh.
Yeah, I worked
Because th
for
Go ahead.
I worked for a shoe store, Fleet Feet. I was working for Fleet Feet not too long ago, and they're they fit you with the right shoe. That's a
Ah.
pretty great process for people to go there and get the right fitted for
Mm.
your feet. They scan your feet, they do all that. And I also learned how different models change so constantly. They're changing,
Hmm.
and alternating your shoes is a very good idea. Having three pair of shoes so that you're not using the same shoe and it's not wearing off on the same spot, and
Wow.
your feet get adapted to different shoes.
Because some people have high arches, some are more flat, some are, some just kind of walk on the outside of their feet, So I've got fitted for shoes before, and they have you walk, and they can monitor everything, and I think it was with New Balance, if I'm not mistaken. But the tech is just very impressive. I wonder how AI is going to help runners. You have any ideas?
Oh gosh, I wonder the same thing because we're using it
Yeah.
for so many other things, and
Right.
I think that if you can't afford a coach, you can always AI for and see how it works.
Hmm.
But I think we always need a human connection, but I think pretty soon, instead of the scanners and everything, you're probably going to get 3D printed or something shoes that
Yeah.
are especially
Yeah.
for you. I
That's yeah, tailored specifically for your foot. Yeah, I could see that happening. Yeah, 3D printed sneakers, right? Tailored after. Wow, I could see that. And yeah, it could probably. Oh my goodness! And why not even have a sensor in the sneaker? So as you develop it and as you continue to run and your style changes, maybe it can modify with you as well. I
Yeah, that
mean,
would be awesome. Like it gives you feedback on how you're landing and whether you're
right?
on the floor too much, the milliseconds. Uh, I've been I've been swimming with a pair of they're called Form, and they have your workout on your lens, and I don't
Wow.
have the premium right now, but when I had the premium, it gives you all kinds of how much head's tilting with all kinds of feedback, and
Wow.
I can see where they might be able to do that with your shoes or and yeah, the sky's the limit with this AI stuff.
It's exciting. It's exciting. So you weren't into running, you didn't like it, you started running, you kind of needed a new outlet and kind of a new addiction, and then you hit that first marathon and you were sunk then, Victor, right? You were
Yeah,
all in.
yeah, because somebody told me, "Oh, you could qualify for the Boston Marathon, and once you qualify for the Boston Marathon, you considered elite." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I can
Wow.
I want that. I want that." And I had to shave off like 35 minutes, and I thought, I can shave 35 minutes in my next marathon because I walked a lot and I this, and I thought, yeah, no problem. I'll qualify in my next marathon. Well, it took me 17 marathons and 6 years of,
Wow.
of trying out, and that's. But once I made that breakthrough, it was an awesome feeling. But yeah, by then
Hmm.
I'm pretty addicted to the runs, and and that's where I also started to make other kind of changes in my life, doing more. meditative spirituality into my running and trying to
Hmm.
balance things because uh, I realized I had just substituted one addiction for another, and
Mm.
you can go down a bad path, getting stubborn, or even depression because you chase this goal for so long, and then okay, once it's done, now okay, now what are you going to do?
Hmm. And then how did you get into triathlons?
It was training, trying to qualify for Boston because it was taking me so long to qualify for Boston that I started to give up. I was feeling like I was going backwards. I'm not making any progress. And that's when I picked up the book, Run Less, Run Faster.
Hmm.
And in that book, they suggested cross training. So I picked up swim and bike. I was going to the gym, taking spin classes, doing the swim. And then I'm like, well, that's what somebody said. "Yeah, you should do an Ironman. You're already doing swim, bike, run." It's like, yeah. So I checked out. There was an Ironman, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We lived really close to that. And it's like, oh yeah, if you want to, it was the day of the race, and they said, yeah, if you want to do this next year, you have to sign up tomorrow because it fills up
Wow.
right away. Okay, so I signed up, and I'm like, well, now I got to get a bike. I got to learn to swim, and I did that. I started training for triathlon that way. But I did not finish my first Ironman. Mile
Oh,
20 of the marathon, at mile 20, I just got sick, and I collapsed, cramping and throwing up. And the paramedic said, "Yeah, you can continue, but you're just going to keep falling." And then another guy said, "You can always do it next year." So I thought, okay, then I gave it up and I tried next year. I paced myself way too fast. So the next year, I actually joined a triathlon club where I learned all about pacing, nutrition, all of that stuff. It's a whole different beast compared to a
it is.
marathon.
Mm.
There's so many things that you have to consider. And I did good for the next three Ironmans. I was pretty good.
But Victor, you didn't warm up with a sprint or an Olympic. You went right to the Ironman.
I went right for the Ironman. I did the same thing with the marathon, and I don't suggest that anymore. But there's different personalities because my
Mm.
sister did the same thing, and she's the one that got me into marathons. And she just invited me to do sign up for a marathon, sign up for their training plan. But of course, with the training for the marathon, they have where to sign up. At what point you can sign up for a 10K or a 5K or a half marathon, and so they incorporate those races within the marathon training plan. And that's
Hmm.
what I usually do with my clients, depending on where they want to do. I think that if you are compelled to do a big race, you just have to allow yourself more time to train. But it's definitely a huge transformation of the way you're going to think about it, of the time you're going to dedicate, the discipline. And that makes me think about, because we just said about discipline when you're talking about running the mile as a punishment. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people have that connotation about
Right.
discipline as a punishment. So we kind of try to reframe discipline as like, yeah, it does take discipline, but with a coach, we can figure out a way of making discipline something that empowers you and not something that you feel is a punishment. Because I have
Mm.
triathletes who come to me for coaching them in the running part, and that's usually what they say: I don't like running is my weak part, and I want to run faster, but I'm always getting hurt. It always feels like a punishment. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, then let's reframe, because there's a lot of things that we can do to find the joy in running. And
Uh,
that is key, that is key, I think, to the discipline,
yeah, I like it.
because it's so different for so many people. And
Mm.
I think about my daughter when we used to discipline them. Well, one of my daughters loved reading books in her room. So when it came to discipline, it's like, well, you can't send her to a room because we're trying to get her out of the room and get her to go
Mm.
outside. So it's just how people think of certain things and activities, and what are they connecting to the word discipline and to
Yeah,
running.
there's many ways to look at it. I want to ask you, Victor, about so I mean, I've done a few triathlons. So I've done a couple sprints. I've done like 3 or 4 Olympics. Now the Olympics are it's a .9 mile swim. It's like 26-mile bike, and it's like a 10K, which is 6.4 mile run or 6.2. But the Ironman is 4 times all that, isn't it? Like a 2.4 mile swim and
Yes.
like 110 bike, something like that, and then a
12.
full marathon.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that you didn't start at any of these. My goals with every one of those was to finish. By the way, I think I ended up doing one under 3 hours, but or was it 4 hours? I don't remember now. But it was always to finish, and then my last one I did was under a certain time. But that's a big difference
Yeah.
from an Olympic, which, by the way, in the Olympics, they do that in like 40 minutes. It's absolutely crazy, isn't it? It's absolutely nuts. But you didn't start off small at all. It's incredible to me. You went right to the Ironman.
Yes, and I think for clients, it depends on where they're at. Like I was doing a lot of marathons, and depending on where someone is at, if you're gonna start from scratch, then I would say it would be a 2 year. If you want to, hey, I want to sign up for this Ironman, I say go for it, but allow yourself 2 years to
Mm,
train.
mm.
But if you are already in good shape and thing, you could do it in 12 months. So it all depends on where you're at in your own fitness level.
Mm. So I think I have this right. I think you were born originally in Mexico, and boxing was actually your passion. Talk about being punished. Your boxing was your, and then you made the change to run. What was the transition there?
I think that there was I was young. I was young when I was boxing, and I had a lot of fear of failing and not, if I think at one point it's like, if I'm not going to go to the Olympics, I don't want to box.
Mm,
So I didn't have coaches that could say, you know what, take some time off or let's take it into. It was just one or the other. Either I can be good at this or I don't want it. And marathon was age of 38 when I started running marathons,
wow.
and a whole different mindset. I just wanted to enjoy running. I wanted to prove to my sister that I could run a marathon. I didn't
Hmm,
think it was going to be something that I was going to be addicted to, but I think I still connected it. I still, when I was running and runner's high, I often would picture myself winning a boxing champion.
wow.
Probably in the back of my mind is like that, because you thought of that in the past of one day getting the golden gloves or doing this. It's still running, it's still motivating you, even though it's like a video of
Hmm,
yourself.
hmm. What happened at Lakefront?
Lakefront marathon, cramping, lots of cramping at the end. um, that one was mysterious to me. I was very bummed out at the end. I was when I got a Well, let me back up a little bit. I knew something was up when mile 16, that oh, the crampings. I've been here before. I've had cramping like this, so I'm just going to walk. And so I walked from mile 16 to the finish line. But as I'm getting close to the finish line, I'm thinking, oh, I hope I don't start cramping once I stop, because now I'm walking and I could feel them coming here and there, little
Mm,
cramps. And sure enough, as soon as I cross the finish line, there's like a water hose, and I'm like, oh gosh, thank God I got my medal. I went to soak my head, and just cramp just came really intense. And I grabbed the rail. Somebody saw me. They put a chair, and they told me, you need to walk. You need to walk. And well, I can't walk. I'm cramping.
mm,
And it's
mm.
like, can you get to the tent? And then the medical tent was really about 15 feet. Oh yeah, I can get there. I got up, and next thing you know, I'm on the floor. They're picking me up. They're carrying me to the tent, and I'm like, "Yeah, you passed out." I'm like, "Oh." And then the story with my wife was like, she was talking to her brother, and she was like, "Oh, somebody just passed out, and they're carrying him." She's like, "Oh, that's my husband." And but anyway, at the tent, it was horrible. It was just cramping would not stop, and they kept putting
Wow.
Gatorade and all this other stuff. They couldn't give me an IV for some reason. I forgot what they said. They weren't allowed to do IV because usually when you're dehydrated, the IV usually takes good care of that, but they didn't. So when I'm walking out, I told the doctor, "Yeah, I think I'm done with marathons." And he said, "Oh no, you may just have to take care of your nutrition, and you'll be back running." And then I thought, oh, if he said that after seeing me suffering, then maybe there's hope.
Hmm.
So I've run a few marathons after that, and I haven't had, thank God, I haven't had that experience. But it was when I got home from this was in Milwaukee. When I got home, I tested positive for COVID. So now I'm linking the two. Okay, maybe something was going on. My body
Wow.
was fighting the COVID, and that's what, because I felt like I did everything right. I hydrated, I did everything that thing. So that was the reason why I was so bummed out, because I did everything that you're supposed to do. This is the stuff I coach on. How could this happen to me? And yeah, then okay, if my body was fighting COVID, then that could be the reason why
Hmm.
it was hard.
And when you're cramping in your calves and your thighs. It's all lower body?
Mostly lower body, but at that point, everything, like,
Really?
because my body goes to like want to hold my calf, then the shoulder starts, and if I yawn, these muscles cramp.
Wow.
It just everything. It is horrible.
Wow. Wow. And potassium doesn't help. I mean, we were always told to eat a half banana before soccer, these kinds of things, but you've got to do that way before.
Yeah, and those are the things I took care of, because I do content on making sure you have potassium, make sure you get your magnesiums, you sure everything is in good proportions. This time I did everything. But yeah, for somebody who's doing marathons, making sure those things, and then the rest is out of your control. I think it was no way of me knowing that I had COVID, and I don't know what else you can do. In that case, yeah, making sure you have your electrolytes, because I also, that's the other thing that I did. I make sure that I had my electrolytes in my drinking water, and pacing yourself. That's probably the number one thing. In this case, I thought I was pacing myself appropriately. I would, had I known my body was fighting something, I would have gone slower from the beginning.
Hmm.
Mm. But the
Describe
number one
Boston.
reason why people cramp is they are running a little faster than they should be running.
Ah, ah, yeah, interesting. They're demanding more of their body than their body wants to provide. So
Yeah.
the results are cramping. Very interesting. Describe Boston.
Wow, Boston was it was just one of those feelings of I'm finally here.
Hmm.
I'm finally here. It's a great experience, because it. Remember when I was trying to qualify? Like, I just want to qualify. I don't know if I'm going to go to Boston, but I want to know that I was still stuck in that guy saying you're considered elite if you qualify for Boston.
Hmm. Hmm.
But once I got there, it was an amazing feeling. They put you in corrals with your pace, and you're pretty packed. And it's a fun experience to be running with people who are at your same pace, because it's tight. It's a lot of runners, and
Wow.
to be just running at that same pace, it's a great feeling. Tons of spectators. It is awesome, and to finally get that medal that took so much hard work. It was a great feeling.
Hmm. And it's a tough course.
It's a tough course, and the weather can be. It's in April. You have to get up early, and in my case, I had to take the subway early in the
PT.
morning from my hotel, drive to wherever you get the subway, then take the subway downtown, and then they bus you to your starting areas. Then they put you in corrals, and by the time you run, I got up probably at 4 in the morning, and I started the race at 10. So it's a
Wow.
lot of transportation, and they told us it was going to be extremely hot. And when we're in those corrals, I'm seeing people sunbathing because it's kind of chilly at that moment, but they're telling us it's going to be 90. And I'm like, and looking at people, it's like, are you crazy? You're sunbathing. We're going to be out baking and running. And yeah, a lot of people had to be pulled out of the race because of the heat. I was able to finish, but when I got on the bus, I started getting sick, going back to the hotel. And
Ah.
there's this lady trying to talk to me about, because I have my medal, and how did you feel, and asking me question, and I'm like, just answering with short answers, like, hope she
Mm.
leaves me alone because I feel like I'm going to throw up. And finally, I told her, I think I'm going to throw up. And I went to the side. But yeah, that's a pretty often occurrence. One of those things that come with running
Mm.
endurance. I think a lot of people have, you put your body through a lot in something like
Yeah.
that.
26 miles. Why should people that want to run a marathon hire a coach?
Oh, to build the confidence, to
Mm.
help them build the confidence to get to the finish line, um, and to for that encouragement that every like with my clients, I usually meet them once a week, and it really helps them know that they're in the right track. And if something happens, hey, let's address it right now. um, they should hire a coach so that the stuff that happened to me, like an Ironman, doesn't happen. They
Mm.
make sure they're crossing their T's and everything. And I think that extra reassurance that you're okay, because the tendency for somebody training for like a marathon is you're either feel like you are never trained enough. So what a lot of the athletes will do is they'll try to catch up or try to make up those miles that they missed because of whatever reason, and and then they're overtrained or they get hurt. So hiring a coach comes in handy to prevent injury, get it to the finish line, get there without the injuries, and just feel confident. And I like the transformational part. That's what I've been adding to my coaching, is like, hey, if you want to practice disciplines in other areas of your life, this is a good time because you're already making a lot of changes, because you have to change your nutrition, you have to change your
Mm.
habits. It takes a lot of training. Might as well stack a little bit of other stuff that you are trying to do and incorporating those habits and make those changes in your life, because you want this to be a lifestyle. Uh, so getting to the reasons why you are doing this, why are you doing this? And a lot of times it's deep, even though we don't usually talk about it. There's something you're trying to either heal or get over something, and if you get to that bottom of that, then you can make that a lifestyle of making those changes,
Mm.
healing those wounds. Um, yeah.
And when people come to you, Victor, and say, "Look, I want to run because I want to lose weight." I mean, losing weight, you got to get healthy, but nutrition plays a very large part in that. So do you coach them and try to, avoid processed foods and these kinds of things? So when you're coaching them, you're only not only teaching them how to run, but you're talking about nutrition as well?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of we cover a lot of the nutrition, and depending on where they're at and how they're already eating, uh,
Mm.
making sure that we need to cut the right calories, because you still have to
Hmm.
eat quite a bit, depending on the volume of training that they're doing. They still have to eat well, and a lot of them are going to transfer their fat into muscle.
Mm.
So they may, I make that clear. There's a chance that if there's not a lot of fat to be lost, then that fat could transfer into muscle, which may mean the scale's not going to show that, because muscle weighs more than fat, that and they're okay with it. They're okay with it because they're, yeah, as long as I going for a certain look and I lose some of the fat, if I weigh the same or even a little more, but I look lean,
Hmm.
I'm good with that.
Hmm. And running running marathons and running sprints, dashes is very different running and very different body types, right? You see like the ones that won the 100, even like fullbacks in football, they're huge thighs and just wide and but they're still very, very fast and they've got excellent form. So I mean, it's a very different discussion there. But generally, you're talking about running longer distances, mile plus.
Yes. Yeah, that is my specialty is marathons, half marathons, 10Ks. Mm.
Hmm.
The other, I would be more comfortable working with them if they had like a live coach, like someone's actually supervising
Ah.
their thing, because it's a lot more of watching their mechanics. They're really, it's kind of like swimming. It's really hard to coach somebody online on their swimming. They still, even though you can learn a lot through videos and all that stuff, if you don't have a coach, they're actually watching you and telling you, look, your stroke, your thing a little bit very detailed. Mm.
Victor, has there been anything in the last month or so that you've changed your mind on?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think it's, I can't think of anything specifically, but I change my mind on a daily basis.
Hmm.
I think it's more like there are things that I'm doing that's like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. And I just realized, okay, you're having a moment of down, and go for a run and you'll feel different.
Hmm.
And see, yeah.
It's a nice outlet for you. Whenever you're down, you just go for a run.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, let's go think about it, get some positive thoughts, go run and see what you can come up with. And 99% of the time, I come up with a yes, I've got it. I've got the solution. We're going to practice that. And it's pretty remarkable.
It is remarkable. And part of it is that I would think is that you're out, you're treating your body well, you're off the grid, right? You don't have all screens in front of you. You're not getting email and texts and things like that. So you're alone with your body and your thoughts. And maybe you're not driving, you're not thinking, okay, what's the solution? What's the solution? It just kind of comes to you because your mind is forced to focus on your running, your stride, and the traffic or the weather wherever you are, and it just opens up yourself to receive these kinds of things. Just a hunch.
Yeah. Yeah. I've come up with a million ways to explain it, but I said, well, any of those is probably right. You're getting a lot
Right.
more uh, blood to the brain,
Mm.
chemicals that are coming. I don't know. Maybe I have a special effect to one of those chemicals going up. I don't know, but I like it, and I don't want to overanalyze it too much.
Right.
It's like
Right.
I don't know how it happens, but it happens. I just go for a run, and it happens. But I
Yeah.
do little things. If certain things like thinking of positive things, being mindful, a lot of times is just like in meditation, focusing. Like I love counting my cadence because when I qualified for the Boston Marathon, I actually counted my cadence the entire marathon,
Wow.
and it was spot on. Like I was at that time, I think I was trying to do 95 revolutions per minute.
Hmm.
So I would count to 95. And at that time, I remember it was like a 7 minute and 16-second miles. So I would calculate, okay, how many times do I have to count in 1 minute to get to the mile? And it was spot on. It's like, boom, I get to that count, and that's mile one. And they'd have that mile marker. Oh, can I do the same for the next
Wow.
mile and the next mile? And I think that rhythm is very meditative. It requires a lot of focus, and I think that helps me somewhat with the solutions. It's like, okay, can we just focus on one thing at the time rather than have it all scattered and bring more clarity to our thoughts?
Hmm.
And that's it's with swimming and all the other sports, because I think I thought about it when I was starting to swim, because swim is so technical that they tell you, only focus on one thing
Yeah.
and to improve it. So, okay, what if I take that and apply it to my running and do the same thing, like just focus on where my foot is landing, focus on my posture, focus on my cadence, like with the counting. How long can I just focus on that one thing?
Mm,
And I think it does help with that when your brain's scattered everywhere, and
mm,
one minute you're thinking about one thing and then another thing, and the tendency sometimes for endurance sports is if you're getting tired, it can go the other way. You can start thinking very
mm,
negative thoughts, and you were talking about the emotional part, because I remember this incident at the Portland Marathon. At the end, I went by myself. That was probably the only marathon where I didn't take it family or anybody else. It was just I was going to go try to qualify for Boston, and I didn't. But I remember at the end, I'm walking to my hotel, and there's a guy. There's a guy in a wheelchair with a beer, and I saw him all of a sudden like just dropped it in a wheelchair. The beer dropped it, and it's like I just started crying.
hmm,
I was like, "Where's his family?" And I from there to the hotel, I'm bawling, and
hmm,
I was like, "Why? Why is this affecting me so much?" And then I started realizing, oh, part of it is the emotional part. And I think now that I'm older, I'm more emotional on everything. But at that time, it was like very rare that I would tear up or
hmm.
something I witnessed like that. I've seen a lot of bad things here and in Mexico, and I've never gotten like that. And it's like, wow, just you do get emotional after putting yourself through it. And that's what you see. You see a lot of people cross the finish line. It's either tears of joy or tears of pain.
Mm. Yeah, because you're pushing your body and, and it's not just physical, it's mental as well. And when you get to that finish line, yeah, it's just, it's just so overwhelmed. I remember a couple of those triathlons that I did. It was just, my God, yeah, it's just, I couldn't, I didn't, I was confused, like you said, I didn't know whether to cry or to be happy or to be, just, it's just overwhelming. You're pushing your body to where it hasn't been before and where it's not expecting to be. And it just, things take over there. And I could see how something like that could just kind of click for you. And I could definitely relate to that. You talked about the swimming where you focus on one thing. I hired a coach to teach me how to swim, and I loved it, and I could swim forever, Victor. I just can't swim fast, but once you learn the form, oh, it's wonderful. The way that they can swim and the way that you force your body how to breathe, and you try to stay on top of the water, and it doesn't, there's no pounding of anything in your body. It's such a great form of exercise. Um, but
Yeah.
focusing on one thing is really important. We do that in golf too. A lot of times in golf, you'll see somebody standing there sticking about two or three things. Just one. Just focus on one thing. I think that rings true in a lot of athletic endeavors.
Yes. And I think that we could probably solve a lot of our problems or thing is like, hey, forget about everything else. Let's just focus on this one thing. Or when you're starting new habits, new disciplines, is like, hey,
Mm,
let's just start getting up early at 4 in the morning. And whether I go for a 1 mile, 2 mile, three, I'm not even going to worry about that. I'm just get up in the morning, start getting up. If it's just going around the block, go around the block. If it's a little more, that's great. But don't beat yourself for what you got done. Just start with that one habit,
mm,
getting up early in the morning. I think that we can do a lot of focusing on one thing. I think that especially today with so much distraction,
mm.
and get so quickly overwhelmed. on the things that we
That
should, a thousand things we're supposed to be doing.
we're supposed to do. Yeah, there's an old kind of hunter's proverb: hunt for one rabbit, get one rabbit. Hunt for two rabbits, get zero rabbits.
Uh, what's that other one? Two birds in one hand and something.
Yeah, better than one and the other, yeah. So, I started, I think I mentioned before, I started my business back in the '90s. I got up to 340 pounds, Victor. I was not paying attention to myself. I was in my 20s. I thought I was invincible, much like yourself, I'm sure. And, the doctor says to me, if I don't lose the weight, not going to see my daughter graduate, scared me to death, right? I now have this little girl that somehow I'm responsible for. And it's, what am I doing? I can treat myself as bad as I want, but I'm responsible for this family now. So I have more than just myself. So I spent the next 6, 7 months, lost 130 pounds. And unlike a marathon or a race, you can't look at losing weight as a finishing line. Once you lose that weight, you've got to keep it off. You've got to make lifelong changes. Many people aim for a certain weight and then they go back to their old habits, and they gain the weight back. So it's very different kind of discipline. So people ask me how I did it, and I always just say discipline, as you've mentioned numerous times. I got, motivation, I got routine, I got willpower. So how does motivation play a role in your life?
I think in the same format it is for you. And by the way, that's amazing that you've been able to keep it off and keep
Mm,
there. But always to ask myself where I believe we all are either we're going towards something and running away from something. So that was the big question. What am I running towards, literally and
mm,
metaphorically? But yeah, what is it that we're trying to run with and trying to avoid? If we can get those two things, what am I going for and what am I trying to avoid? Because avoidance sometimes is huge. It's very powerful, but I think it's more exciting to know what you're going for. So, for example, in your case, I'm sure that you said you want to be there for your daughter's wedding. You want to
mm,
be
mm.
for your daughter at an older age. Mm. And if you can keep those in mind when you're doing this, when you're trying to do the things that you're trying to accomplish, don't forget the things that you're trying to accomplish and the things that you're trying to avoid. And
Yeah,
yeah,
very,
that
very true.
plays a big role. And in the coaching too, that's what I do with my client. What is it that you are trying, and never forget, because it's easy to forget once you get into the trenches of or stubborn in the things that you're trying to accomplish. Because now, like for example, with the marathons or me trying to get to the Boston Marathon, it's easy to forget all the other stuff. Is that you're trying to do it for health, you're trying to do it, and all of a sudden you may be doing unhealthy things like overtraining and just really stubborn on getting that goal and neglecting other areas of your life, your relationships, your even your nutrition sometimes.
Yeah, well said. Given your background, you were born and grew up in Mexico. You came here. Was discipline instilled? Was it talked about, or was it just assumed?
Yeah, I think discipline. I grew up in a small village in Mexico, and I think my dad had a way of the way he criticized others. I think you kind of got the hint. It's like, yeah, you
I
don't want to
see.
be like that. You want to be like this.
Mm,
Or
mm.
we were farmers, so my dad used so much the farming examples with animals. What does a good animal behave like, and what a good work, what like the crops is. He pretty much would take credit for his discipline and working the farm, it why he's being blessed. And they have all these sayings too, early bird gets the worm, something like that.
Right.
Madruga Dios lo ayuda.
Huh.
So
What?
I don't think, but to answer your question, they didn't use those words of
Right.
discipline, but it was
Just assumed.
instilled in the way they lived and
Mm,
things that they said. Uh, you would connect them later in life, and it's
mm.
always there. It's like, yeah. I think that's why I like to work out early. I think that I always feel better working out early, and I think that's
Me
what's
too.
instilled with my parents is
Hmm.
good good farmers get up early.
Right. Yeah, kinda get it out of the way, this is the hardest thing I'm gonna do, and it's gonna be first thing in the morning. Anything I do for the rest of the day is not gonna be as hard as this. It's just a great I like to work out early too. As I get older, I find that I'm a more of a morning person. What motivates you, Victor?
That's a good question. What motivates me? I think that my future self, the
Hmm,
person I want to be, that the legacy I want to leave my kids, and I really thought that about. I always say that my daughters adopted me. I didn't.
hmm,
I was. I met my ex-wife now when my kids were little, and they just jokingly started calling me dad, daddy, 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 and like,
hmm,
it stuck. And then they called daddy afterward. And but there was a point where like, who am I? What legacy do I want to leave? What how do I want to behave? Because I want them. I want to be a good influence. I want them to say he was a good dad.
hmm,
Um, I have a story of one impactful time when my daughter. I was smoking a cigarette, waiting for them to pick me up because my car had broke down and they were going to pick me up. But they had never seen me smoking, so they kind of snuck up when the thing is like my daughter caught me smoking, and I was a little embarrassed. And then my daughter said, Dad, that's not like you."
hmm,
And I thought, she doesn't know me. My first thought was she doesn't know me, but then I thought, well, if if she believes that of me, then maybe I should believe that truth
hmm,
is that is not me. Otherwise, I would have been hiding it. And I quickly picked up that you know what, I'm gonna go with her thought that that's not me, and don't do it. If it's not me, why do it? And go with that thought rather than the thought that I was like, well, no, that's exactly me. Like, you don't know me. And I so that goes just with the things that motivated me.
hmm.
I'm connecting that with motivation, and connecting to my future self is one of the things that I've done a lot lately to motivate myself. Is like, okay, um, who do I want to be even tomorrow? Because that really helps me what I'm intaking today. Because I know if I go, I really want to have a nice long run tomorrow, and I know that if I have a couple of beers, I'm not going to enjoy that run as
Hmm.
much. And I use that as a motivator to take care of my body a little better. And I think that do that for the long term goals as well for motivation. Helps me a lot. How about you?
So
What is your motivation? Because I know that.
it slides. It slides depending, but my daughters are a big part of it, just like you. They're older now, but it definitely it weighs. It weighs. I feel I'm a father first. So given that motivation, Victor, how do you measure success?
I've struggled with that one a lot. I think that there's, I think a lot of subconscious of what success is, but lately it's been when I'm laying down, do I feel good? Do I feel good
Mm,
about today? And do I feel good about tomorrow? And to me, that I've succeeded today. So one day at a time is like succeeded, and like he's going for the things that I want, and starting to feel that choice of wanting it, and rather than the obligation part. I think that it feels successful. Like, hey, I'm going towards something. Um, I hear a lot of talk lately of you have to, if you what is it, no matter what you you should fail a lot. If you're going to
Mm.
fail, if you experiment a lot, then you can never fail. So, okay, then that's my
Hmm.
approach. Then, okay, let's experiment with this today, and I cannot fail. So, if I did not fail, then I must have succeeded.
Well, I love what you're doing, Victor, because you're helping people, you're motivating them. You've worked on yourself and you continue to work on yourself, but a lot of people would get that knowledge and get that ability and just keep it to themselves. But no, you decide to turn it around. You talk to people like me, you coach people. I think that's the trait of a remarkable person. We're in a serious issue, serious epidemic here in our country in the States where we have to get healthier. The numbers, there's such bad nutrition out there, such bad food that we have to exercise. Once we exercise and get healthy, we won't want to eat those bad things. We'll want to eat healthier. Like you said, it'll just make us want to be better. So exercise is the first step. Of course, you need nutrition, you need sleep, but getting people to exercise help. And I really appreciate what you're doing. Anybody listening want to get in touch with you? How can they get in touch with you?
Oh, they can go to my website, eymcoaching.com. I have a awesome free training plan. So if they want to download the free training plan, they get automatically into my email list, and they can use that. The other way is to just contact me through Instagram on EYM Coaching USA for Instagram, or instant message me on any of those platforms as well.
It's got great content. EYMcoaching.com. You got YouTube. You conduct interviews with people that run as well, which is really cool. And your Instagram is great. It's got videos of you. It talked about what happened at some of the marathons. It's really, you're really open with it. I like it. And like you said, that's at EYM Coaching USA on Instagram. We'll make sure to put all those links in. Victor, I thank you so much for your time. Next time I'm in the great Northwest there, I'll get in touch and we'll have a cup of tea.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, I look forward to it. It was an honor being here. Thank you for having me. And I see you did your homework and some of the questions you asked me, and it's like, oh, and now that you said YouTube, it's like, oh, that's where he got the link.
Absolutely. You're
You
fascinating,
know,
and I love what you're doing.
thank you, thank you.
You be well.
You as well. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.